Just give you, that's us being recorded now. Um, I'll just give you a brief introduction, and then if you wouldn't mind reading for us, I think we've selected some pieces that you can read for us. After that, we'll have a chance to have a conversation with you, ask you some questions about your work. And I was saying to our friends here not to be shy, because I hear you're quite, you don't actually bite if people ask you questions. So hopefully, oh, perhaps you do. So hopefully you'll be able
I'm a
to.
bit hungry. I tell you, I didn't have breakfast, so you never know.
Oh
A
dear, oh dear. Okay, so he does
little
bite.
bit of muesli.
Sorry.
Yeah, partial.
So this is Dr. Nick Makoha. And Nick has been writing poetry since he was 6 years old. And I love this. I was just reading this. The reason he started writing poetry was because he thought it was the normal thing to do. I think that's such a lovely explanation of becoming a poet. So these days he's a prize-winning poet and a playwright as well, I believe. He's known for two collections, Kingdom of Gravity and the more recent one, The New Carthaginians, and I think it's that latter one that you're going to be reading from today. He's also had lots of inclusions in numerous publications, Cambridge Review, Callaloo, New York Times. His first collection was one of the Guardian Best Books of the Year. And he's coming to Stanza in March, so we'll be able to see Nick in St Andrews. Also, I'd like to say that Nick is the founder of the Obsidian Foundation, which I was just reading about. So it's an organisation dedicated to cultivating and amplifying the voice of Black poets. So yeah, that was my Googling there, and I found that very interesting. So I'd like to welcome Nick to Well Versed and invite you. Would you like to do some reading for us, please?
Did you say which ones you want me to read, or is it just I read
Why don't you choose what you would like to? Because you sent over a selection, I think, of ones that you might do.
Oh, okay. What did I send you?
You sent from the New Carthaginians. You sent Flight
Yeah.
and Self Portrait, the poetess Cassius Clay.
Oh, that's a good poem. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll have that then. New Carthaginian Codex Heroica. I mean, to give us time to.
How much time do I have to read? Let me
Why,
that
why
would
don't
also.
why don't you take about 15 minutes or so to read, or a bit more if you need it, and that will leave us time to chat afterwards.
All right, let me just get my book. The most
Okay.
important artifact. All right, just hold on.
I'll show you my snowdrop while we're waiting. Just picked it from the garden.
Yeah,
First
so this
snowdrop.
is the hardback, but the paperback is just they just gave me the paperback, so I'm quite excited.
Oh
I might
yeah.
do both. Yeah, let's see. So okay, I'll read a few.
Yes,
I
please.
read this one just on Sunday for the TSL. I mean, I love the whole book, but it's one of my favorites only because I think it sets the tone of the book. There's a poem before it, which is Prelude, which is actually it actually comes outside of the book. It's actually before the introduction, and it was kind of a homage to Wordsworth
Oh,
and his Prelude, and in many ways, because he wrote Preludes as an autobiography. I was a writer in residence at the Wordsworth Centre, and I promised the Wordsworth Centre that I'd do some kind of homage to Wordsworth, and so the first poem is actually Prelude. The next poem is this poem, which is Flight, which is what I'll read you,
yes, please.
which I know by heart, but I will use the book as a prop, if that's okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. And it introduces the three characters of the book in different ways. So one is the poet and Jean-Michel Basquiat are in conversation, but two, Icarus is I mean, he's not their friend yet, but he is becoming their friend. But they're already thinking about him, which I wasn't thinking about this at the time. So even though I'm telling you this, I'm realizing this is what this poem was doing, because you can't know everything when you're writing it. If you do, you are God. And I don't believe that we are gods. But anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know why I was rambling. Let's get to the poem. Flight. One, flight. There are things that can never be the same, like the history of space. 2 a.m. This is the actual moment when Basquiat and I first meet. In the light of that moment, he begins to talk about doing something other than art. Writing, perhaps? I take his coffee and cup it in one hand as he draws a pair of wings on the back of a napkin. What wings, I ask, because the body is an imperfect container. Two, flight. Time is what stops everything happening at once. I remember Icarus, Iverson's 48-point game, the taste of sorrow on a beach. But I've forgotten the fear of flying. I wake from a deep sleep conscious that I am an animal, a bird on fire looking for an edge. For the third time in my life, I'm scissoring through darkness. The night is thick with everything coming. Swift is the night. Slow is the dark. Three, flight, fleeing. Think of it like this. Amelia, the flight attendant, will want to know if everyone is okay. My face framed in the mirror of an Airbus bathroom lacks courage. A gun in a paper bag, and all things fear you and tremble in your presence, as my life has taught me, you must suffer. Without this word, I'll take myself and unhinge myself from this body. Keep in mind that this section is translated. Four, flight, between floors and levels. I didn't get to choose the location. 0.0436 degrees north, 32.4418 degrees east, and it's darkness and hunger. Neither did I choose the ceiling of stars that made me a foreigner that evening. Same way that the air becomes something else the moment you lean into it, waiting to bear us up as you glide upon it, then I, too, am a new thing, born of another language. I am both familiar and unfamiliar. Five, flight, a selection of small portions. This photo is taken towards the end of the shoot. It is a love movement. If you add captions under the sound of the rain pounding, you can hear the camera. My father asked the cameraman, will the light displace us? Stevie Wonder is playing. I'm off camera. And at 3 years old, I already know that they are going to split up. That Ugandan skyline looks completely different now. Six, flight, a far-fetched idea. Who understands the world? The year is 1976. It will be a long summer. Air France Flight 139 will depart from Tel Aviv. So far, no sign of the blood and future. What does it know? We're in the last stages of waiting. The general will ask for the freedom of 40 Palestinians detained in Israel. They are moving to a changed destination, a foreign city that houses the room in which I was born. Seven, flight, the tale. Do you know this one? I call it Icarus's theme tune. He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he is chased away. Job, chapter 20, verse 8. Yeah, it's probably one of the poems I'm most familiar with. Um, there's another poem I made of kind of form. I mean, I know people have tried this, but I've done a different thing and was slightly critiqued the other day. I was a little bit annoyed by someone who will remain nameless, but uh, it's basically one of the things I was trying to do was imitate what many painters do, but Basquiat did was he painted a lot of triptychs, and I wanted to have a triptych on the poetic page, and so I didn't know how I would do that. So a diptych is easy; you just put two poems next to each other that have some kind of connection. But I wanted something more ambitious, not for ambition's sake, but for an artistic drive. So I'm going to read you this poem. I don't know if you could see it, but it's Pegasus. So the top is a poem. This is one poem, and it's called Pegasus. And the bottom, the footnotes are a poem. If you read them by themselves, and they're called Now is the Time. And you could read them separately. And I'm sure that maybe people have been confused and read them separately, and they should work. And I did that for that confusion. But the triptych comes, or the third poem comes, when you read them through the poetic track. So I'll show you, I will just read about four of the lines, just so that you get from each one, so that you get. So Pegasus, you could read it like this. A friend of mine who was not yet ready to visit his friend in another life insists that the West had a good working relationship with the regime. His wife had worked for some politician, or was it his wife had dated some politician, and now the politician wouldn't return her calls. Yeah. It makes total sense. So if you carry on reading, you're like, huh, this is a poem, of course. And then now is the time, reads like this. The first illusion. At their command, nothing escaped. Time refuted its dimension and became a distance between points. She didn't know that selfish ambition imitates a narcotic dream. And I wrote these poems separately. So just to assure you, this wasn't a construction. These are two separate poems. And I did this for all the poems that we would call footnote poems were written in separation. They weren't written in collusion, right? And then at some point I just said, I wonder if I could connect these poems. So all the poems that do that, I'll read you this one and maybe another one. Um, work that way. So Pegasus is a painting by Basquiat, and Now is the Time is a painting by Basquiat. Now is the Time is actually a record, a big record by Charlie Parker. It's a song by Charlie Parker. So part of this is Pegasus, of course, is flight, because that's one of the themes I'm looking at. But the other one is this kind of music of Black experience that runs through the book. So one of them is Charlie Parker, another one is D'Angelo. I think in the last poem you heard Stevie Wonder. So there's a soundtrack playing constantly through the book. I only just realized that now. This is a really good book. Anyway, let's go. Should we go? All right, here we go. Pegasus. Now is the time. A friend of mine who's not yet ready to visit his friend in another life insists that the West, the first illusion, had a good working relationship with the regime. At their command, nothing escaped. Time refuted its dimension and became a distance between points. His wife had worked for some politician, or was it his wife had dated some politician and wouldn't return her calls? She didn't know that selfish ambition imitates a narcotic dream, skin like midnight, waist like a moving river, eyes like colored glass. They had met over drinks just before the coup in January of that year at a conference upstate. She opened up as one would to those godlike entities in Kubrick's Space Odyssey. Now they had him in custody, weightless and transformed into some sort of reverse Superman, the politician on suspicion of normalizing proceedings, whatever that means. This is his mugshot, staged, of course. Something was missing. With no lawyer present, the police made sure they showed him some of that African hospitality. Outside that window, the sky continued to grow. They loosened their ties and tuxedos, but not their shoes, and fed him posher with nyamachoma. They even washed his hands with that good water. Much later, they would become heavier entities in the world. You can't have hospitality without a cold beer. I've tried. They drank to his future. They drank to fast love because he had mentioned the wife's name. They drank till he showed the other side of himself on this side of paradise. Nothing's ever offered without reward. A plane drifted downwards. Words came into sight, but no smoking sign came on. They filled their blood with mercury. Or was it they filled their blood with war? There must be some kind of mistake, the politician insisted. His face was the moon. Hijackers argued about money as blood rushed to their ears. And to think, just a few weeks ago, he had got his golf handicap down to 10. This is a man who normally everyone believed, a man with a philosophy, now a low burning flame, a man who spoke like he had a secret, who once was shown a diagram given to him by his secretary. All 5'7" and 191 pounds of her confidential blueprints were a currency with which to negotiate time. Must never be thought of as pre existing. But he didn't play that game. This is a photograph of the politician in an upstairs room next to a vase filled with dahlias. There with a reporter now who is trying to fill in the blanks. Satellite photos of a field and fighter planes that plunge like arrows lead us to an unarmed Swiss bank account, code name Pegasus. This must be a mistake. Perhaps Hegel was right when he said, the finite world is a reflection of the mind. Even the darkness hides its face as the sound of the storm moves away. Yeah, so that's one of the footnote poems. Can I read you another one of them? I don't often do this. You're getting a treat here, I tell you. Get scones. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, this is a cool one. This is another one. So another thing that Black Basquiat does, because Basquiat's one of the key characters, is in his paintings, he centers the black body. So this is another footnote poem, and it has two other poems. So if you look up, you can Google it for yourselves, but there's a painting by him called Self-Portrait 1981. So everyone gets confused with this 1981, but it's Self-Portrait 1981, which is the first footnote. So the footnote in this case is in the title. I don't know how I came up with that idea. But and then the other one is there's another portrait of Cassius Clay. The painting is just called Cassius Clay. So the title is called Self-Portrait 1, 1981, and Self-Portrait of the Poetess Cassius Clay, which is the second one. So I'm going to read you that, and it has an epigraph that goes, if I'm going to sing like someone else, then I don't need to sing at all. E. Farker. Self-Portrait, 1981. That midsummer at the D'Angelo concert is sold out at Brixton. Fuck. I can't tell you what he whispered to the security, but here's a picture of Icarus and me backstage with two press cards pinned to our chests. And to think, a few hours ago, I was clocking off work. They've only just let the crowd, they've only just let in the crowd, and you can see a hum, you can hear the hum from the tannoy. The thing about Icarus is, he has a microchip for a mouth. You say it, he'll name it. You name it, he'll play it. Once, after his dad had died, I caught him beating his chest after a month of fasting and prayer. They were more like songs, really, the way the words fell out from him like bone from his bones. Anyway, he's calling Kenyan Harold, the trumpet player from the Vanguard, Kenya, asking him things like, how do you create an open field in the band? And if he believes in the equation of the freedom principle, even in the light of the Palestine situation. D'Angelo has popped two cassettes into a deck. Icarus calls him Smoke. My bladder is about to cut loose. When I return, they are huddled around the tape deck like tribesmen eating jerk chicken, listening to a jamming session from the morning's rehearsal in silence. Smoke must have taken the picture because he's the only one not in it. Icarus is in the center with his wings fanning and closing. Self-Portrait of the Poet is Cassius Clay, 1982. To forgive someone requires two incidents in your life. The most obvious is the incident that, like fire, must be redeemed by fire. Here is a match. A young journalist is speaking off camera, but her eyes struggle to find the center. She is talking about my country the way a wino pees Pepsi into a can. This is being broadcast around the world, except for the countries in which she is in. Hmm. She's using her diaphragm to say things outside the range of her common experience. We are what you talk about before you cut to the news desk for an update on the Olympics. The only part you will remember is that the Queen's daughter has qualified for the British riding team, and not that the body on the ground belonged to another body, and that he fought to stay alive the way the journalist fights with her mic, or fights with the to beat the falling darkness, or fights away a pair of mosquitoes that hover between her breast and right eye, hover between her lip and right breast. The cameraman has the engine running, and he's using the back of the pickup as a tripod while he rolls himself a smoke. Watch his lens searching for the sweetness of death. If only the dead could awaken. The lighter belongs to the body on the ground. So do the smokes. And so does the country in which we watch him. The mosquitoes know this. That is why they are unhinged. And now, so do you. The second point of forgiveness sits in the future, like the woman I will one day love, and the country in which I will one day live. Forgive me. My heart is a vicious wolf that moves like the cloud of God, searching for the true shape of history, searching for the weight of a love lost. My mother was a river. My father was a boat, both separated by a sack of light. Yeah. How am I doing for time? You're on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. That's grand. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, did you want to do one more, or is that?
Should I do one more, guys? Well, it's up to you.
Should we
It's
have
your
one more
world.
from him? Yeah, we'll make you
One
work.
more, one more from
Yes,
him. That's my
one
name.
more.
Dr. Him. Not a Dr. Him. Let's see. Oh, I was thinking of reading. I should have read this at the Elliots, but anyway, I'll read it for you. So the title poem. There are two versions of the New Carthaginian, and they're both. I mean, let's just leave it at that. But I'll read you the more fierce one, and it's in the voice of Hannibal, who was a Carthaginian. Yeah, and it has an epigraph again. This one, and it's also a footnote poem, but it has just one footnote, which is right at the end. but the epigraph is from Marcus Garvey. So the new Carthaginian. Black men of Carthage, Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, and Alexandria gave the likes of civilization to this world. Marcus Garvey. We are slaves to the world engine. Nothing eludes it. It has us in synchronous labor since birth, our dark matter settling into itself, each one of us let fall, a pyramid removed from its original purpose, yielding its petals dew from a flower's bloom. Someone is dead, and will do what is required to fulfill that purpose, remember? When they smoked our body like cigars, remember? When they tore us from ourselves like loose clothing, remember? When they wore our women like cigars and in that same adornment scattered them as one would dust among the stars. And what of the children? You question me. Maybe I'm making this up as one does a dream. Maybe I am a broken king burning in the embers of his own rage. You're right. One of these is true. Would you call a body hanging from a tree an imitation of Christ on the cross? Both were killed for something they did not do. What is the crime? Believing the story or wanting to know the truth? Let us enter through another door. Look, a mirror. Now let us see ourselves as we really are, to stand in the window of oneself and draw yourself into a new shape. Let that storm brew. Lean in. You are not a fridge magnet in a duty-free store or the handle of a dull blade. Hold that note. In this place, you are no longer the chorus. Let this world be your hammer. In any future, remember, you are a new Carthaginian. Blackness here is not a term of intimacy of human vagary, but of publicness. Exit Hannibal. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Do you know, I've got a question. I've been reading your some of your stuff, and I've been working hard. I've been Googling stuff. I've been trying to remember 1976 because I was around in 1976. I've been really looking at all the different bits and levels of what you're saying, and I'm just wondering, as a poet, how much work do you expect of us as readers, and what kind of work are you looking for? When you imagine us reading your stuff, how do you imagine us working with it?
You can just read it. You don't have to do that work. I think you're intrigued. Yeah, you could just read it. Like when I watch a film, I don't need to go to like it's based in Madagascar. I don't need to go to Madagascar and find out. I just accept that this is Madagascar. So I think it's your inquisitiveness and our need to know. It's uh a human tick that we need to know, and we need to know that we know, right?
Mm.
But you don't need the knowledge. You could just sit back and just be in the world of the new Carthaginians. But at the same time, if you do go and research the stuff, I think it will provide with you a richer context that you're like, okay, I didn't know that. So, um, and I try to, I mean, this is a very hard way to live life because the thing about human beings is that as we live life, we have this thing that even my son does, and we all do it as humans. We always act, I already know what I'm doing, right? But I'd like to read, even if I think I know what it's saying, like what can this teach me? Even if I've read it before, what is the new perspective? What is the perspective I lost? What is a new note I can hear? So what I expect of the reader is total commitment to the text. They have permission to jump out of it, but I don't know about you, but when I'm watching a film, I just want to watch it from cover end to end. I want you to read the book from cover to cover. I know some people dip in and dip out, but think of it like this: if I took you to the opera and you said, "I want to watch the first 10 minutes, then I'm going to go out and have a sandwich, then I'm going to talk to my friend on the phone," you'd be like, "Did you go watch the opera, or did you just do stuff around the opera?" So I guess my request for the reader is read it cover to cover. They don't have to. That's it's not. People have their free will, but you'd get more from it reading it cover to cover, not worrying about your lack of knowledge. Because we don't go into a film thinking, "Oh, I know nothing about Napoleon. Let me read all of this literature." You know, you just go in. I'm going to watch the film Napoleon. I know nothing about superheroes. You know, you don't go, "Well, I'm going to have to learn how to fly." You just, you know, I don't know if I'm
Brilliant.
making sense.
Thank you.
Kristen gets
No,
what I'm talking about. She's like,
taking
yeah, I'm
lots
going
of.
to learn how to fly. Okay, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a little question about footnotes. What is it with
Yeah.
footnotes? When I first saw footnotes, oh, this is familiar. I know what a footnote is. And then reading your work, no, I don't know what footnotes are doing here. What is it with footnotes for you?
No, you do know what footnotes is. I've just transformed them, and that was the point. So the way the footnotes usually work is that the superior knowledge is at the top, and extra information is at the bottom.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone is trying to play music. Sorry. Uh, Yeah, so it adds extra information that it thinks that you don't know. But I was going by a different kind of set of rules. So one thing that Basquiat did in his paintings was that all parts of the painting had equal hierarchy. So in my footnote poems, the poems have equal hierarchy, or the lines have equal hierarchy. So you could actually start the poem from the bottom. What's being said there is just as important as what's been said at the top. So you do understand it, but your version is an academic understanding of the footnote. I have done a creative um, transformation of what a footnote could be. So here it is joining two texts, two poems to make a third poem. It's that's its purpose. Whereas usually how footnote works is this is what you need to know, and here's some extra information, but you don't need the extra information. You could just carry on reading. So in other words, this is superior to this. This is inferior. But in mine, wherever the texts are, they are both superior and they both tell their own story. But together, they tell a richer story. And that's kind of, in my version, it's kind of trying to understand the Black experience. So often my Blackness is kind of limited to caricature or stereotype or global majority. Like imagine being called the global majority. What does that mean? But if I gave you a much deeper understanding of me just as a man from Uganda, and this is what the footnote poems do. They give you this outer thinking and inner thinking. So it makes the black body not just a body that is usually perceived as either threatening or under threat, but more as a spiritual, physical being. And that's what the footnotes poems do. So you do understand the footnotes, but in your understanding of it, it's correct. It's the academic understanding. Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Brilliant. Thanks for
Yeah,
that one.
somebody, if this is being recorded, please send that to me because that's the best explanation I've ever given. Woo!
It's great. You're good at explaining. You're good at it. Okay, folks. Other questions? They were my couple of things that were on top of my head. What about yourselves? Either put it in the chat or just raise your hand and speak out and ask Nick. What's
Yeah, talk to me. I'm not going to bite you. I've got loads of time.
he is going to
I'm a,
bite
I'm
you
a,
because
I'm
he's
a patient
hungry.
man. At least today, anyway. You got me on a patient day.
Any comments? Any observations? Any questions? What have you got for us?
Hey, hello. Hey, hi. Hello, hi, hello, Nick. I don't know. This might turn into a question. I don't know. I just want to say I really love the approach of the collection and I love the immersion. And I found the invitation quite intimate. And it was really good to hear your explanation actually just now of your the top of your head explanation of what you feel you were doing because I really felt the invitation and the upending of our ideas of things like how a poem should be, what a footnote is, just to blow that open and to have the experience of communicating and thinking with and being with the poet in the thought almost. I felt like that was a brave decision to do that. And I say that because I have tried something similar in my own process with, I have a very generous publisher who did publish something that would have been tricky, or considered tricky in terms of all the very concrete things of typesetting and with field notes alongside the poem. But I think I'm just applauding the bravery, actually, of ignoring our concepts of form and the limitations of page because there are just simple limitations of pagination, and to actually really play with what the page can do. Yeah, so is it a question? It's not a question, except that did it feel brave? Yeah, that's the question. Did it feel brave to do that, to present that to your editors, to your publisher? Mhm.
How do I say your name? How do I say that name?
Oh, well, listen, thanks for asking. It's Coit. It's Irish.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, I like it already.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
thanks, thanks. Thank
lovely
you.
name. All right. So yeah, simple answer is yes, but let me explain that to you. So I knew I had to take a risk, and I wasn't trying to be clever with the page, which is I know that traditionalists would think, oh, look, this is too academic or this is too whatever. That wasn't the intention. And I'll give you some of I'll open up to you so to some of my vulnerabilities there. So the first vulnerability is I knew I'd written Kingdom of Gravity, and I thought, oh, that's a decent book. But I knew I had to take a bigger leap with this book, which at the time, at the beginning, it was called The Welcome Table, which is just the open idea. And then it became called the Codex. And then, towards the end, it became called the New Carthaginians. So what I knew is I wanted to tell my story, and I wanted to be vulnerable. And the thing about being a poet is that you're clever with language. So I wanted that force field to be removed. So I wanted an intimacy with myself, but with the reader. So those are two things. How do I show them myself? And how do I share that with the reader? Yeah. The other thing, so just park that. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to learn from Basquiat. So I want, as much as this is a book of poems, and I think they're really good poems, now, but I was trying to be a painter. So I think Basquiat is a poet that paints. Yeah. A poet that paints, and I'm a painter who poets. I don't know if that makes sense. So I turned the whole book. The whole book is a mural, right? And it's split into three parts. The Deep Space Quartet is the first mural, of which I read you some of the poems. The Codex is the second mural. Heroica is the third mural. And so that's how I was thinking. I was thinking, could I create a long? So technically, this is my failed attempt at making a long poem. So I turned it into a painting, and then I turned that painting into a triptych, which is a mural. Does that make sense? But that mural had to reveal something about the Entebbe hijacking, something about my autobiography, something about the real Basquiat, and something about to me, the real Icarus. And that, so it was a risk on all grounds. So this is, I knew that just the typical page or the typical poem would have limitations. So everything is taking risks that these could have failed, and there were footnote poems that failed, and there were codex poems that failed, and there was the first version of Eroica, which is based on a painting by Basquiat, was an absolute failure, right? So this is the maturation of failed ideas into the book. I don't know if that answers your question. So yeah, does it?
It
And
really,
somebody help me,
yeah,
please.
yeah, some of it. Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, if I may, so I love it that what you're saying, because in my other life, I have worked with sculpture, right? So early first millennium sculpture, 8th century people who were looking at those Codex Lux, those first illustrated manuscripts of biblical texts, and carrying a lot of information, image, word. There's no separation. Or maybe a very thin film between the idea of the image and the word, and then the word being a thing. And I think probably that most, I feel a bit like this is a really kind of highfalutin way of saying, but I felt that. I felt like that was answered in reading your collection. I felt, oh my God, this is something that's doing that, that's bringing back that unity. From a way of seeing that perhaps we have in our oral cultures and our cultures that we're not so closely wedded to the idea of literature as a separation, but actually closer to the idea of story and continuity and knowingness that isn't based on facts, and but more on, the knowing between people and the way story is shared. So yeah, no, amazing. I love your collection. I love it.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope I've answered it. Anyone else for questions? I got time. I'm not in a
There's
rush.
some questions in the chat. Do you want to have a look in the chat, Nick? Philip has got a question about, I was intrigued by Icarus and wondered how he bridged that link between mythology and reality, or how you bridged that link between mythology and reality.
All right, so just like I was saying to you earlier, I needed a myth. That was the first thing I knew. I could have chosen any myth. One of the reasons I chose Icarus was well, there are many reasons why I chose Icarus. One was Basquiat did a painting called Icarus Essa, so that they were connected. Icarus is in the Aeneid. Well, at least his father is crying at the temple gates that have a picture of his son, or a mural carvings of his son falling into the sea. And Basquiat was called a kind of Icarus because they said he followed too close to his ambition and it killed him. So they have a version of Icarus and they have a version of Basquiat. And even Blackness is, every time we try to, even with this book, I know I've been very experimental and it hasn't always reached good ears because people think, why? So I was like, and even Blackness itself. So I was like, is that a type of Icarus? And also because I deal with different themes of flight like that. So I was like, could I tell a different version that tells us about the real Basquiat, about the real Icarus? And how could I make him a just hold on a minute.
Okay, thanks, Philip. There's one from Preeti here which says, I really like how you mentioned the artist Basquiat in his conversation with Icarus reminds me of Anna Saunders' anthology. Oh,
Say
sorry.
again?
Sorry, I think you've kind of talked about that one. The nature of fury. This is Susanna. In Eroica 1, your speaker talks about the nature of fury. I'm interested in how poetic form can contain and express emotion. Do you tend to let fury find its own form, or do you prefer to pick a form in which to manifest fury? Interesting question.
Yeah, when I write, I don't think about form. When I'm actually writing, like a lot of people, they kind of go, "Oh, I'm going to write a bunch of sonnets. Oh, I'm going to write." I don't do that. I try and pull out what I call is the poetic line, and the poetic line isn't something that's necessarily beautiful. It can be just a very simple line. And when I start writing a poem, or when I'm in the poetic nature of something, all I know is the first line of every whatever poem it is, whatever becomes the first line. That was the only line I knew I was going to write. Everything else, oh, how did we get here? Whereas a lot of people are premeditated, and if I said to you, "I love you," premeditated, in other words. Um, sorry for this, Susanna, you're going to be my wife. But if I said to you, I knew about you when I was 10 years old, we were going to get married on a Friday, you'd be like, what, how, why are you trying to control the situation? It'll be very spooky, right? So a lot of poets, everybody thinks like that because we think we always want to be in control. But creativity is totally the opposite of that. It's out of control. That's where possibility is. So, going back to your question about fury, or it's actually the opposite. What I'm trying to do is deal with the emotions that I often mask. So, fury is one of them. When you're really angry, like you might get angry, you might explode, but the fury might have been sitting there a while, or the fury might be masking another emotion. So what I'm trying to do is, as I'm writing, I'm trying to say, this is what I said, this is what I thought, this is where I went, what did it mean? And I'm always looking at myself. It might be a character. This is, what does it mean? So sometimes these words, they're like notes. They come out and it says, "Oh, fury." Oh, is that what I was thinking about? I didn't know. You know. Um, like we tell people we love them, but when we dig down deep into why we love them, the story's way longer than that word, right? So I'm telling you, Fury. So this book is not is about love, it's about anger, all the emotions. I think why people are resonating with it because my emotions are very close to the surface when usually emotions are down. All the characters' emotions, Basquiat, other people. You can see the love, you can see the intimacy, you can see the annoyance, and but I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't sarcastic or wasn't glib, you know. Don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
Question here from Jack. A bunch of questions actually. Is Icarus and Basquiat you? Is there a painting in you? And why do you need a myth Why not you or a real hero?
I think they are, first of all, go backwards, they are all heroes. We need a myth because people understand myths. In the Western world, everything is based around myths, things we believe or say we believe. So I needed something that people would believe because here's the thing: a lot of times, as a black body, you're not really interested in blackness, and I say that politely. Like, so people aren't going, "Oh, I wonder what's happening in Uganda today." Like, it's not going to come across your mind. Even though something's happening in Sudan, you might be concerned because you're aware and you're conscious and you're in current affairs. But a lot of black experience just goes erased. But myths, people know. Oh, I know Icarus. Your nursery rhymes. Like these things are things that we carry with us, and we remind our children. We might even hear them in an advert. So I was like, I'm going to use the myth because it's something that people can think. So that's one. Yeah. To answer simply, initially they weren't me, but I realized in many ways they're a version of me. Because I think not only do we protect each other from each other, but we also protect ourselves from ourselves. So I was kind of trying to look at maleness in a much more vulnerable way. So I'm not that this is how it planned. It's only now in hindsight. I was thinking maybe this allowed me to look at different aspects of myself in different ways, right? So on one, and in some ways they are me, but really they're distinct characters, you know. But they exhibit some of my different natures, if that makes sense. Um, and also another why I use them is that there are one of the things I'm playing with all the time is time. I think a poet particularly, but all genres of art play with time, you know. Um, and so I was looking at Basquiat time, which is kind of like artistic time. I was looking at historical time. I was looking at mythical time. I was looking at natural time that we live in, and I was weaving them to tell this story. So if you read the book, it is a non-linear story. It keeps moving you forward and back, back and forward, side and side. So you're one of the things a lot of people have told me, which I'm actually quite proud of, when it says this book takes me everywhere. That was its job. It was to show you that the world you perceive I live in is bigger than the world you perceive I live in. And or the world you're in is bigger than the world you think you're in. And that's why. I don't know if I answer your question, but
Great, thank you.
I don't know where I don't know where this comes from. It's amazing. It makes sense.
There's a question from Preeti. Were you creating ekphrastic poetry?
Yes, it's a type of ekphrasis. I was using paintings because a lot of the titles are paintings by Basquiat. But well, the first time I ever saw a Basquiat was at the Boom for Real exhibition at Barbican, and there, the first time I ever saw a painting, I burst into tears. I wept, and it wasn't even burst into tears. I wept. When it's saying in the Bible, Jesus wept. I wept, and it was very uncomfortable, and I tried to control it. And so I knew that Basquiat, I knew in that moment, even though I couldn't articulate it. And later on, I found out, I realized that Basquiat is actually important to me. So Basquiat isn't, but I think for a lot of people, Basquiat is just a cool person. But what I got is that, wow, this is moving to me. And I was like, that level of emotion was the level of emotion that I wanted in my work. So I needed that level of vulnerability. Whatever had me go beyond my own defenses and be open enough to cry in that moment was the same frequency I wanted the book to be delivered in. Um, can't remember what was the original question again?
Was it ekphrastic? And you said
Yeah,
yes.
so yes, I was responding. So because there were a bunch of poems that are actual titles about, I was responding to um, Basquiat's paintings, but usual phrases just describes the painting, and I didn't want to do that. To me, that's quite boring. So I wanted the emotional response I got from these paintings to look at another painting, which was the painting of my life, specifically the Entebbe hijacking, but also key moments of my life that sprouted out because of the Entebbe hijacker. My mom, because of Idi Amin was the dictator. My mom and other Ugandans had to flee the country, right? So it was looking at the mural of my life is one painting, and then Basquiat's paintings, put them all together, is another mural. And I was using the first response to these paintings to respond to the painting of my life, and I call that double ekphrasis. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered that right, but I
Double
tried my
like
best.
phrases. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um, what's Jack saying? I don't see a black skin, I see another person. To give people what they like, perpetuates the myth you wish to dissolve. To do so, the reader may need to meet you in that request. Oh, sorry, that's more of an observation than a question. Can I ask you something? I saw that I read that you said poetry was a refuge and a reservoir for the languages you lost. That I think you grew up speaking 4 languages. I don't know if that's correct, what I was reading. And I was wondering, do you write in any languages other than English? Does that refuge and that reservoir contain...
Hard enough writing in English, let alone another. I don't know. You're asking too much of me. Yeah, I used to speak 4 languages. I'm trying to learn back Swahili. I used to speak Samia and Luganda, which are one of the languages in around East Africa. Um, I used to speak all of them. Well, I think one of them it's never been written down, so you only learn it from speaking it. I think that's Samia. Um, but yeah, so I think in poetry, whatever parts those languages held, I think in poetry I express myself. So even with this book, even I think it expresses my 3-dimensional or 4th-dimensional self. You know, yeah.
Are there any questions that I've missed in the chat or anything else that folk would like to ask Nick? You've got a big chance here, don't miss it. Any other things?
I won't bite you, even though I'm hungry.
Can I just ask that?
I do have a question.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to listen but Basquiat was of the 1980s. I mean, I remember him well. Just thinking about, did you need all this time to process what went on then to bring you to this collection now?
No, no, no. It wasn't like that. I mean, I didn't know I was going to use Basquiat, so it wasn't like this wasn't using Basquiat wasn't premeditated. I really need you to understand that. So for when I was writing the book, like I said to you, let me just take you through a quick through line of the book. So I whenever I'm about to write a book, I get this feeling is I don't want to write a book, all right? And then when I start writing, I have no idea. It's not like I know what I'm going to write about. I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to, and it's going to have these sections. No, I don't do like a big storyboard and all of that. I'm not that. I wish I was that good. I'm not that good. And I don't want to also be that controlled. But what I do have is I just start writing, and just trying to get language out of me. Then I start reading a lot. And then when I started to realize, actually, I want to talk about the Entebbe hijacking, because if you look at my work that I've done so far, Kingdom of Gravity looked at uh, Uganda during the Idi Amin regime, 71 to 79. The Dark, which is a play about how my mom smuggled me out, looks at the one day in which she smuggled me out. And I kind of took the idea kind of from Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which is one of my favorite, if not favorite, film. And I was like, could I tell a story in one day? And then I wanted to look at another period of time, which was 7 days, which is how long the Entebbe hijacking was. So that was the only cornerstone of the original idea. As I, so this book is an answer to a lot of problems. So I was like, how do I tell a story that happens over different timelines? How do I tell a story that's older than it's not just about Uganda, it includes the whole of Africa, it includes the world. How do I move between stuff? And I was like, so one of the things that Basquiat said when he was interviewed is that he wanted to pull the whole of history onto the canvas. And I was like, that's what I'm trying to do. But I didn't know how I was going to do that. So what I realized is, like I said, I went to see the paintings and I had these sakina and I loved the paintings. In fact, my friend pointed out to me even before I went to see the paintings, I used to sketch Basquiat things on my work, or I'd have images of Basquiat around. It was so, you know, in my subconscious, I didn't pay attention to it. So I think the main thing that made me want to choose Basquiat is I wanted to center this story. So I'm a Ugandan. How do I tell a Ugandan story to a Western world that usually they're thinking about Eliot, or they're thinking about Keats, or they're thinking about Wordsworth, or they're thinking about, whoever the contemporary white male is, that's who they're thinking about. They're not thinking that they want to hear an African story. And even if they go to Africa, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking of the post-colonial writers. They're not thinking of a modern story. So I was in a dilemma. And so I kind of saw as, Basquiat as this kind of conduit that would allow me to take a risk in this vulnerable area that hadn't been trodden on before. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
I tried, Cara. I tried my best.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Amazingly, that's our hour. I don't believe that that's gone. Thank you so much.
I was 6 minutes late. I can give you 6 more minutes if you guys are okay with that.
I can't.
Oh, okay. Busy woman. I got loads of these. She knows so many poets.
But just lovely. Thank you. Thanks for the questions. Really searching and great questions. And just thanks for the time and care you put into your answers. I really felt there's some great quotes that can be pulled out. I'm going to be listening back to that and looking back again at what you said. Thank you very much. All the best for your future work, and particularly when you come to St Andrews.
Can't wait. I can't wait.
Scotland again.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you. Pleasure. Thank you for all who came, and keep writing, reading, and I hope my work inspires you. Yeah.
Thank you. It does, Nick. It does. Bye.
Oh, bye-bye.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.